16 months ago, I made one of the biggest mistakes with my Jeep Gladiator build, and today I have my one shot at redemption. If you haven't been hanging on to every nuanced project and trip that I have had with this Gladiator since I got it, let me catch you up. In 2021, I sold my Jeep Wrangler to become a Ford Bronco ambassador. Being an ambassador for Ford meant getting a free Bronco for as long as I provided content for their marketing efforts. I learned a lot from that experience, and my wife and I opted to give back the Bronco, and that's when I bought this Gladiator. Before selling the Wrangler for the Bronco, my buddy AJ, more commonly known as Photo Runner on Instagram, had just gotten his AEV Wrangler, and I found myself drooling over the front bumper of that Jeep. When we decided to get back into a Jeep, the AEV bumper was the obvious choice. I reached out to AEV in hopes of a marketing partnership, and wouldn't you know it, they offered me a pretty solid discount, which saved me $931 before shipping, which really is quite the deal. So when I say I made a $3,000 mistake, I actually mean I made a $2,474.20 mistake, as you can see on my invoice. So I rounded up for a video title. It's YouTube. I'm allowed to exaggerate. Anyway, I couldn't wait to get the bumper on, and with the full intention of filming that installation, I got right to it. The thing is, the installation is very involved, and the tolerances are the tightest I have ever seen on any off-road product. So, it was impossible for me to film as a first-timer installing this bumper, so I didn't. The initial installation took me 3 days to complete, and that was without filming. 3 days to install just a bumper. It's insane. On that initial installation, while I was fighting those tolerances, I made one major concession. I didn't add thread locker. I have no justification other than to say that when a bolt was finally in, I didn't want to take it out to fight those tolerances again, so I just torqued it to spec and moved on. Obviously, that was a mistake, and that's why this video exists. Within the year, bolts were completely lost, and my front skid plate eventually fell off. So after a $143 box of AEV bolts, I don't know why it's $143. I should have just gone to McMaster-Carr, but here we are in the Overkill Racing and Chassis shop, where I plan to take the entire bumper apart to rebuild it with fresh bolts and plenty of thread locker. As I work to take this bumper apart, I want to tell you some news. I am selling this Gladiator. Looking back, my Wrangler was my favorite overland vehicle to date. It really wasn't overdone, and it checked all the boxes for capability as well as daily driving. It was also new enough that all of us were figuring out the best way to build one together, which made for better videos here on my channel. There was a feeling of discovery with both the Wrangler and the Bronco that I don't have with the Gladiator. The Gladiator is just too established and too easy to dial in and make perfect, like I've done. So, as impressive as the Gladiator is, and as much as I love this build, it is hands down the most capable and well-rounded build I have done to date, my channel is in decline. And I attribute this decline to building an audience around a vehicle only to change what I'm driving and then abandon that audience that I just spent time building. Not unlike what I'm doing by selling the Gladiator right now. Trust me, this isn't lost on me. So why do this now? As I see it, every major vehicle manufacturer has sworn to have electric vehicles as their focus moving forward. And as many of you may hate that news, it's the reality of the business. Many of my overland and adventure car camping colleagues are leery of adopting EVs. So I'm poised to become one of the first to go all in. It will come with plenty of compromises at first. Capability and range come to mind. But as an early adopter, I will be better suited to give advice when the market truly takes a turn for Electric Avenue. This has been a complex decision. Just look at this Gladiator that I just built and the places that I've been able to take it. But the only way for me to pivot my business and show you how I think EV adventure can work is to sell Winston and put my money where my mouth is. So, if you are interested in buying the truck that I know I will regret selling, there is a link in this video description. I understand how selling a modified vehicle goes. The price listed is not firm and is open to negotiation. Think of it more as a starting point for the conversation and a filter for those who are not serious buyers. If you are genuinely interested and not just kicking the tires, check the link in this video's description and make me an offer. Winston needs a good home and an owner who will let him continue to stretch his legs on far-off adventures. Far be it from me to make engineering critiques, and the same goes for mechanic advice, as I am 100% self-taught. But in reverse engineering, I see a lot of opportunities to simplify this bumper's design. I was an architectural designer in a past life, meaning my job was aesthetics and simplicity rather than engineering, so I can easily be way off base here. Generally speaking, simplicity and engineering don't always go hand in hand. And while working on this bumper, I can tell you that is absolutely the case. When disassembling this bumper, you can see how many parts bolt together to make it what it is and seemingly complicate the end result. These wings on the ends are some of the most, if not the most, difficult parts to finesse when assembling this bumper. So taking them off is giving me second thoughts because I don't want to fight to put them back on. While I couldn't find any specific crash test data on this bumper, there is a common conversation that the AEV bumpers are so good because they are crash tested. Instead, what I found on the AEV website eases a lot of our minds about the Jeep grille, and that is on the FAQ of the AEV Jeep bumper that I have here, where the question is asked, from your pictures, it looks like the center hoop lights and the winch block off too much airflow to the grille. Is this something I should worry about? To which AEV responds, no, we spent years, literally, developing and testing this bumper in a variety of ways and conditions to make sure this bumper would perform well and without compromise before it made it on the front of any customer-owned vehicles. The EX front bumper has seen everything from the daily commute to high-altitude rock crawling to multi-day overland trips across the desert. I'm happy with that response from AEV. And with my Baja design lights, I built the bracket to sit even further forward than the AEV brackets, which makes me confident that the truck is getting plenty of airflow, especially after reading AEV's statement. But to be even more sure, today I'm installing the 2024 Jeep Wrangler and Gladiator grille to increase airflow further. It's moments like these where I'm improving the Gladiator that give me pause in selling it. I genuinely love this truck. But I do see a future in the EV adventure segment, even if that future is giving all of you a train wreck to watch, from a safe distance, of course. I mean, look at Whistling Diesel's channel. That guy burns Ferraris to the ground and gets views for days. Side note and message to the Fates. Do not consider the last line foreshadowing on my future endeavors, please. One of my favorite things about this bumper is how it integrates the winch, lights, and recovery points. But the disadvantage is that if you ever need to maintain any of these parts, like, replace a winch line, they are the most difficult ones to access. You essentially need to dismantle 95% of the bumper to gain access to your winch, or in this case, the grille. If you have never replaced or removed the grille on the Jeep, it is painless. It is held in place entirely by plastic clips. There isn't a single screw or bolt to worry about. But with the AEV bumper in the way, it makes getting to it a half a day's job. With the bumper out of the way, I can now rotate the winch out of the way as well, and it is time to remove this pre-refresh grille. And then in with the new grille. I know that the new grille has sparked some controversy in the Jeep community, but truthfully, adding it to Winston is a performance decision. The 7 slots are iconic, but this full mesh front grille will give Winston here even more airflow. With the bumper off, I am making another noteworthy upgrade to Winston. My Baja design lights need the new factory amber lenses. Allow me a minute to explain why I prefer the high Kelvin and truer amber lenses to the selective yellow. The first reason is that I'm looking for something other than intensity. Baja Design's employees constantly miss this when I tell them that I want factory amber. They are so hung up on how bright their lights can be that they forget not all of us are bombing racetracks in the desert. Factory amber will diminish brightness, but I'm okay with that because it will increase the contrast in trail conditions. Think of blue blocker glasses. They reduce eye strain and help you see better for longer. Amber, it's the same story. The blue light reflecting off particles in the air makes visibility more difficult because your eye is straining to discern what is in the air from what isn't. That's oversimplified, but that's like the entry-level course on why I choose the much darker factory amber over the selective yellow. I want to see less reflection off of what's in the air. The good news is that I will be adding lights to the Rivian when I eventually get it, and I will do a huge deep dive video on why I select the lights I do, along with the lens patterns, colors, and placement. You can find a lot of that information right now on Baja Design's website, but I can't wait to make my own video explaining exactly why I personally pick what I do, and hopefully help you make a more informed decision on your next light purchase. But that video will have to wait. Right here, my camera batteries died. So I don't have a shot of me installing the new Squadron Pros as my fog lights, but what is really awesome is that Baja Designs has a kit that integrates with the Jeep factory fog light switch and a bracket that works with the factory bumper, and, as I learned here, with the AEV bumper as well. I will link all of it in the description so all of my Jeep friends can add these to their bumpers. You're welcome. This brings up the question of SAE fogs. I went back and forth on this. Ultimately, I went with the non-SAE because I'm already dropping intensity with the factory amber lights, and the SAE fogs also drop intensity. So doubling that would have made them almost useless, I feel. Probably not, but that's how I feel about it. Welcome to day 2 of the installation. You wouldn't even know it until you saw that maybe I was wearing a different shirt. I had to leave this installation and recollect myself because, again, I got frustrated with the difficult and low tolerance bolt runs. When starting on the second day, I learned a neat trick. I used one of the bolt bags to add some friction when placing the nut in the socket so that I could reach those difficult to reach spots. This prevented the nut from falling out, and it was actually easy. So I'm glad that I took a break and went home and slept and came back and made this part really easy. So now, with that trick learned, we are ready to reassemble this entire thing. There's plenty of Loctite and triple checking torque specs to come. The bumper is made of 3 main components. This portion is called the main weldment. It is the real structure of the system and a crash course in how involved this installation will be. The 6 bolts that attach it to the Jeep are nearly impossible to reach around the winch, hence the little tool hack I learned earlier. Getting a firm grip on the flange nut and simultaneously torquing to 90 foot-pounds isn't as easy as the instructions make it sound, or as easy as I make it look here, so be prepared. The next portion of the bumper is the visible faceplate, but before you can add that, you need to add these cowls to the rear side of the hoop. Missing one step in this installation can mean removing nearly everything just to get that earlier part to fit. If you think you can dive into this installation without taking a college-level study course, think again. Spend your time reading the install instructions. Then, take a break. And then reread them. And then do it again. I think I've beaten that horse dead by this point. This bumper sucks to install. This is my last time saying it. I swear. Here's a fun mistake I made. The camera cable needs to be disconnected from the camera, not just the harness on the Jeep's frame. I didn't know this. And when I was reconnecting it, the camera didn't work. So I thought, oh no, I screwed something up, and I tried a DIY fix on the cable, and when doing so, I broke the cable. Then I went and I read the instructions. So remember what I was just saying above, like really read the instructions. And they said that the 2024 Plus models need a specific order of operations in connection. And it turns out my 2023 requires the exact same order of operations. Needless to say, I broke this cable and had to order a new one for $87. Awesome. I didn't expect the hoop cover to be roto-formed plastic, and I bet you didn't see that coming either. AEV does a perfect job of making it look like it's part of the metal, but it isn't. And at first, this disappointed me. But now I see the benefit as weight savings for the front end of the bumper on a piece that doesn't need to be structural. The main weldment hoop is cool because it has engineered cable runs, making it easy to hide the light harness, camera cable, and the camera wiper fluid line. With the hoop assembled and the lines running, it is time to start the finishing touches of the bumper with the frontmost plate. This is the second section of the bumper that includes the wings, and while I love the look of the EX bumper with the wide wings, I wouldn't do it again and I would opt instead for the RX bumper. The EX bumper includes an additional rear bracket that needs lining up and is a nightmare to get just right. Luckily, my bumper appears to have formed a memory, if you will, so lining it up this time was not as bad as the first time. This part has some easy to miss nuances in brackets and order of operations. I really want to get it right, so I'm constantly returning to the installation instructions that I printed off. And this is my biggest tip with this whole bumper. If you plan to tackle this yourself, print the instructions and then read them about 67 times. Have you ever laid on a shop floor and fought the cumbersome install of a boron steel skid plate all by yourself? Well, I have, and this is what it looked like. This skid plate gets the Justin is an idiot stamp of approval. Remember me telling you that it fell off? Well, when it did, I ran over it, and because it's made of stamped boron steel, it didn't even phase it. It kept its shape and fit right back in place, as you can see here, without needing any adjustment or refinement or fixing. It just went back where it belonged. With the main two sections of the bumper assembled, it's down to the third section, finishes. This is the most rewarding part. It takes close to no effort at this point to get the bumper looking the way it should, and you can step back and take pride in the work that was accomplished. Let's talk about the Baja Designs LP6s and how I got them to fit on this bumper. I found some old rooftop tent spanner plates and drilled holes in them to fit the M12 bolts that run into the bumper hoop. From there, the LP6 bracket bolted straight to this bracket I made with just a few washers and an eye-lock nut. And I got it super, super tight so it doesn't move at all. I do have the AAV light brackets, but they are a proprietary fit to AAV's lights and they will not work with the Baja Design lights. So save yourself the $40 that those cost and don't get them. The issue I have with my current setup, though, is that the bracket rattles. I need to add a small gusset to it to prevent that rattle, for which I need to go back to this shop and enlist the help of my welding friends, and I'll probably do that when the new camera cable comes in. It will make a world of difference in the performance of these lights, and it will be another one of those minor fixes that has me falling even more in love with a Jeep that I'm trying to sell. I'm putting Winston in the friend zone. All of these small things keep showing me that I could love this truck forever, but I see a different future for us. I now understand every female friend I had in high school. I was just a fully capable Jeep looking for adventure, and they were pivoting their business to a new market and segment that had higher risk with less competition in the creator space. I mean, it all makes perfect sense now. All right, the moment of truth, because everything is bolted on and finished, I need to test all these lights to make sure they work. I need to get better at testing things like this as I go along and not when an entire project is buttoned up. Luckily, the camera cable was the only thing that needed fixing, and all the lights, including their daytime running connections, are running perfectly. Next is the winch hook. I love the Factor 55E flat link because I can use it with a screw pin bow shackle. Soft shackles are great, but there's something so satisfying about grabbing a rated Crosby shackle that gives me just all of the recovery feels. And this E-flat link lets me do that. And now, as a final tip, always wear gloves when you're running your winch. All right, there it is. It is finished and ready for a good car wash and detail session. Thank you for joining me.